Tim Worley. Welcome back to T-Town. I hope all is well.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing, man?
Thank
you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you again for helping us out, and we kind of look forward to kind of talking some football with you and kind of getting your perspective. But we were talking, Marquise and I were, as we opened up the show. Let me go back to that Georgia game. Not recalling, but what was that like? I mean, your wife's an Alabama All-American national champ, and you're watching this great play in the motion roller coaster. I mean, you guys had us knocked out in the halftime, and I mean, if they would have gave me an option, I drove back Tuscaloosa at halftime. I'd have left, but they came back and kind of, where were you guys at? And kind of walk us through that a little bit.
Well, I was the most important thing for that situation was I wasn't in the same place as my wife on that night. I had some stuff scheduled in Indianapolis, some speaking events, and so I got a chance to watch the game in a hotel. But I'm just here to tell you, man, it wasn't a good night for me. Because I felt like Georgia was hanging in there. I felt like we were. I'm not going to say dominating, but we were playing, and we were playing well. We were winning, and all of a sudden, man, when Tua came in, it just changed the game. And, a game that we should have won, I felt like we matched up pretty good with Alabama. But I'm telling you, man, I don't usually get upset about stuff, especially games. I can get over it. But for some reason, Ryan, I could not get over that game, man. I was upset. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, to the point where, I'm going to admit this on live radio, but I wanted to cry, man. I got upset.
I got you. Well, listen, I've wanted to do that. I mean, I was down in Tampa a couple of years ago, and at last second, I realized I was a media guy for a minute, but I wanted to cry then after what Deshaun Watson did to us there in that final play. So I've been there. I mean, we've had it. And speaking of that, Tim, as a player, you want that revenge factor, right? And I'm curious, when you look at Georgia this week, I mean, we've played Jonathan Ledbetter's comments yesterday, and can you have too much of that revenge, though? I mean, can it be too much?
Well, I'm going to say something. I'm going to quote Mike Tyson right here.
Okay.
And Mike said, everybody got a game plan until they get hit in the mouth, right? So, to me, I don't get into all the hype. I don't get into all the social media stuff. A lot of them play ball, okay? And, Georgia understands that they're going against a giant. Alabama is a giant, okay? And if you're going to come to play Alabama, you better have your A-plus game. You better bring it with you. I hear everybody after every game, we want Bama. You sure you want Alabama? Okay? You don't know what you're asking for, bro. But listen, I know Georgia's going to be prepared. Those guys they were in it last year, and here we are again. From 2012, even last year in the national championship, this is the third time. Okay, we have an opportunity to do something big, and I just believe that this time the outcome is going to be different.
Okay, let me ask you, because when you cover Alabama, you don't get a chance to see a lot of Georgia. I've watched them play a few times. Where would you compare this team to last year's team, and maybe strengths and weaknesses? How would you compare this team to last year's team for the Dogs?
I feel like offensively, Georgia didn't really lose much. You got Swift and Holyfield, and you got a lot of great skill guys on offense, and you got some great skill guys on defense. But when you think about the linebacker core, I believe that's one of the places where I believe Georgia's missing it. Not want to say missing it, but you had Raekwon Smith, who was a field general on defense, and without that guy, any team would miss that guy. And so you lost a lot of key factors on defense in Georgia, but they have made up for it. And I think some of the weakness in Georgia right now is probably in their defensive backfield.
Tim, we're also kind of looking at numbers, and these teams are so similar in so many areas, but two areas that I think Georgia's better: special teams, punting. When you talk about field goal, they're one of the best, and Alabama has not had a very productive season in that area. But the area that really jumps out to me is Georgia getting pressure on the quarterback. They're not very good at it, and that needs to change for this game to be very, very close, because as we know, if you give Tua all day, it's probably not going to work out for your favor. And I'm curious, what do you think they can do to maybe change that to put pressure on Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, I mean, Tua will pick you apart. I don't care who you are, what kind of defense you're running. And if you don't have pressure, the thing is, guys, is number one, you got to put pressure on Tua. You got to get some hits on him. I'm not talking about dirty hits or even taking him to the ground. You just got to keep getting hits, and those hits will add up as the game go on. But we have to figure out, and I know they got this in their plans, we have to figure out when to blitz. We have to maybe double down on a few receivers, Judy, a couple more receivers that Alabama have. But like I said, Ryan, we're going to have to do something different. You know, we can't just be slacking off like we did during the season. You saw our defensive line. You know what? We saw quarterbacks, teams that wasn't even rated, you know, scoring points and getting big yardage on our defense. And that came from all the time that the quarterback had in the pocket to throw. But we have to buckle down this time, and we got to get some things going, some different kind of blitzes or something, and some double teams.
Well, let me ask you, because you study leadership and you and DD run a great organization. I want to talk about that as well. I'm curious, what do you see in Nick Saban that has allowed him to be as successful? I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest dynasties, and I think you helped us kind of understand that a couple of minutes ago. But we've never seen anything like this in college football. 5 out of the last 9. It just, you run out of adjectives to describe. But what do you see? Because you study this. You understand what it takes to achieve at the highest level. What do you see in this guy, Nick Saban?
He's a winner. And he's a perfectionist. He's a winner, and he takes no less than that. And he's built a program over the years, not just when he was at Alabama, but he took time and he mastered the coaching business. He mastered working with athletes, football players, and helping them to perfect their game. He built the program, Ryan, and these young men have bought into it. And he's a winner, and everybody wants to be a part of a winning team. I don't care what people say about Alabama. Alabama is Alabama, and he's mastered what he's done. Okay, and you can't take that from him. He's the best coach in college football. Probably by the time he retired, the best coach in college football ever. I'm going to give Alabama and Nick Saban their props. So,
how much Kirby Smart or how much Nick Saban do you see in Kirby Smart?
I see a lot because Kirby, you know, I believe that offensively you win a lot of games, but I believe truly on the defense, that's where you win championships. And I believe that Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are both defensive-minded players. They were both defensive backs in college, and so they have that mentality. There's an aggressive mentality that they have, as most defensive linebackers and some defensive linemen have. And Kirby has that same thing. Kirby has that, and I won't say it like this, but he has that. There's a nastiness that you have to have as a defensive player. You know, I played a little defense in high school, and I was a vicious defensive back, but I just ran the ball better. You know what I mean? But there's a nastiness that you have to have, and I believe Nick Saban has that, Kirby Smart has that, and they're both winners.
We are talking right now with Tim Worley, and we have certainly looked at and highlighted his wife, Dee Worley, which is a national champ, All-American gymnast for the University of Alabama. I was reading a story here on UGAwire.com that I thought that they did a great job. It said, we have 2 rules in the Worley home for Bama versus Georgia. No taunting before the game and no gloating after the game. So you mean there's no, there's no 2nd and 26 photo hanging on the wall, nothing like that? I mean, no, because see, we play 2nd and 26 like every day here because we're still celebrating. I mean, nothing like that happens, right?
Listen, man. Happy wife, happy life, brother. Let me tell you something. That doesn't fly in the Worley household. Listen, it's getting closer to Saturday, and I got to be honest with you. You know, Dee's been a little bit quiet. He was quiet, very quiet this morning, and I told her, I said, honey, you didn't say too much to me this morning. And I think she knows that game is getting closer and closer. But we don't, man. We don't taunt. We don't brag. We don't gloat. We don't do any of those things. You know, it's hard to get my wife to sit down and watch a game with me, especially the game between Georgia and Alabama. She'll be in the closet the whole time listening to Eli Gold. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to get her to come in and watch the game, but she won't watch it. But it's we have fun with it, man, but we don't tease each other because we know how we both feel. And she knew not to mess with me about that thing last year because, brother, I was hot. I was upset. It was like I was still playing. Ryan, listen, when I say I was hot, I was hot.
I got you. Well, and I like the statement here. I don't know if I've ever seen this, but this might be a tag. I mean, we could, with your marketing skills, I mean, we need to launch like a campaign. We're not a house divided. We're a house double blessed. And that's your wife giving the quote there to the Georgia website as you talk about this leading up to the SEC championship game. Let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to throw darts at South Bend, Indiana, but as we get closer to this game time and you've got a number 1 against a number 4, anything can happen. You like Notre Dame sitting there in the couch and they're just watching, Alabama did the same last year, and obviously Auburn prevented them from going to Atlanta. They'd love to have been able to go, but they were prevented from going there. But you got Notre Dame sitting there at the house not playing a conference championship, and then you got a risk because Georgia may get knocked out, or could be Alabama gets knocked out. You almost think a little bit that's not really fair, is it?
It's not fair, but you said something a second ago. You said I'm not trying to throw darts at Notre Dame. Guess what? I'm Tim Worley. I'm throwing darts at Notre Dame.
All right, let it rip. Let it go.
Get in a conference. Get in a conference, and then you can talk. No, I love my Notre Dame folk. But anyway, anything could happen. Notre Dame's Notre Dame. They played. NC gave them a scare last week, and I still just don't believe you got to play somebody. You got to play teams. If you come into the SEC and play those games year in and year out, then you'll see what I'm talking about. Then you can authentically be ranked high like that. I just don't believe that Notre Dame is good enough to be ranked 2 or 3 right now. I just don't believe it.
All right. Now, since I'm just throwing you all these curveballs, we've been asking coaches all week here on this program and former players. When you look at now we're in the SEC, and I know our mind is shaped where we play 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. Some better than others. You guys certainly special teams, offense, defense. We just play offense and defense here in Tuscaloosa. We're still working on that special team part. Let me go to Oklahoma. When you're watching last Friday's game where they don't play any defense, it looks like they just quit. What's your thoughts as a guy that, yeah, sure, we love offense, but I'd like to see somebody tackle somebody too.
Listen, man, I don't like to go to a football game and a track meet break out, you know what I mean, or a basketball game. I want to see some football. I want to see defense. I'm the type of guy, we want our team to blow people out, but give me some competition. Show me some defense. I was an offensive guy, but I love defense more than I like offense. Play defense. One of the coaches at Oklahoma, he was my former high school coach, Coach Ruffin McNeil. And, and I'm just wondering, what's going on out in Oklahoma, because they really don't play defense in that conference, man. It's like a track meet. But the one thing that I do respect about the SEC, even though you may have high-scoring games sometimes, there is defense that has been played. Even the ACC play a little bit of defense. But the SEC, man, if you really want to talk about being in the top rank, you got to come through the SEC and play those teams, man. That's when you can really rate yourself.
Hey, Tim, I know you're a motivation talker. You travel. You give these talking engagements. I look up at the clock, and I've spent 13 minutes and 55 seconds, and I'm fired up after sitting here talking to you. Talk about your organization, your the way that folks can get in touch with you, leadership development, all the things that you're involved in. Talk about Worley Global Enterprises and what you guys are able to do there.
Okay, Worley Global Enterprises is a communications consultant firm that me and my wife started years ago. I'm in corporate and ministry leadership development and I speak nationally. I do a lot of stuff with athletes, do a lot of stuff with corporate leadership and ministry in the church. Dee is more marketing, branding, PR. She's an editor. She's a copywriter. She's actually ghostwriting my book now that's slated to come out and scheduled to come out in 2019, in the fall of 2019. But if you want to reach us, guys, you can go to my website, WorleyGlobalEnterprises.com. And my Instagram is @WorleyGlobalEnterprises. My handle Twitter is @WorleyGlobalBiz. And my Facebook is Worley Global Enterprises, okay? So that's what we do, man. We get a chance to be in the company of a lot of great people and helping not just young athletes, but also helping people in leadership in the corporate world and in the church.
Man, and I love the tweets that obviously Dee's a part of there, and certainly a big shout out to what she was able to accomplish here at the University of Alabama. I was reading some of the stats. I mean, man, what a pedigree! 17-time All-American at the University of Alabama. Think about that. I mean, that's a.
Yeah.
I mean, did she ever say? You know, she's got 17. I think you have 1, 2 All-American 7. Did she ever? I mean, I know gymnasts are a little different, but I mean, that's a lot of All-American honors for Dee.
You know what, Ryan? I tell her all the time. I say, babe, you are amazing. And you know what? I want to send a shout out to her because she's listening right now. And I just want to tell my wife. You know, everybody say when they see my wife, they say, "Boy, you out punted your coverage." But you know what? But I just want to give a shout out, Dee. If you're listening right now, honey, I love you. You're the best thing in the world that ever happened to me, and thank you for coming back into my life. You're the best, babe.
Well, and certainly, listen, you guys have a lot of fun this weekend. We'll just say I don't want to wish you luck, but because I kind of want this team in Tuscaloosa to win. But let's just hope it's a good game. How about that?
We're going to do that. I don't believe in luck, and may the most prepared team win.
Okay.
That's what I mean. It's going to be a dogfight, man.
What? No, I mean, we're expecting that. I mean, listen, and don't tell these Alabama fans this, but they're a little anxiety over here. They're nervous. I mean, we've been we're anticipating this. I mean, it's going to be a 4-quarter game, and as we would expect, they're nervous here in Tuscaloosa. And I'm right there with them. So I appreciate you being part of our show.
Well, you know what? I don't usually brag and do all this stuff, but they need to be nervous. It's the third time. We chasing the giant.
Well, Tim, hey, man, thank you so – go ahead. No, go ahead.
I said we're chasing the giant, man, but no, you know, I hope everybody come out injury-free and may the best prepared team win, man.
Well, I would campaign for just letting us both in the playoffs. And maybe there's a reason, and maybe you'll see Northwestern beat Ohio State. Maybe you'll see Texas beat Oklahoma. And just,
that'd be sweet.
Yeah, let us all in. Hey, Tim, I appreciate you, man. Thank you again for being a part of the show, man.
Thank you, Ryan.